Hello, my dear friend. Welcome to tonight's story. My name is Tony, and it is my deepest joy to guide you through this peaceful journey, to be the voice that gently carries you toward rest. If this is your first time joining me, you are so very welcome, like a traveler finding a warm hearth on a cool evening. And if you've been here before, I am so glad to see you again, like a dear friend. Returning home after a long time away, your presence fills this moment with warmth, and I am grateful for the connection we share. I know today may have been long. Perhaps it was filled with tasks and thoughts that spun like leaves in the wind. Or maybe it was a quiet day with a heaviness that settled softly on your heart. But now, you're here in this soft, tranquil space. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to hold. Tonight we will step into a story, a gentle tale of friendship, courage, and the magic of the simple, where a little pig named Wilbur and a wise, caring spider named Charlotte find each other in the most unexpected of places. Their bond will not only save a life, but will show us all the power of kindness and sacrifice. This story, though woven with both sadness and hope, reminds us that the world is full of quiet moments that can change everything. It is a story of transformation of hearts, finding each other, and how one voice, however small, can make a world of difference. Before we begin, if you enjoy these stories and find peace in them, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support not only helps us continue to bring these peaceful moments to you, but it also inspires us to create more stories that touch your heart. We would be deeply grateful if you could share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments, as they help us grow and improve. Now, let's settle in and prepare to embark on tonight's journey. Take a deep breath in and let the gentle air fill your lungs. As you breathe out, feel the weight of the day lifting, leaving only calm and serenity behind. With that, let's begin. Let's visit the farm where Wilbur the pig is about to learn that life is more than what it seems, and where Charlotte the spider will weave a story of her own that no one will ever forget. Part 1. The birth of a piglet and the start of a journey. On a warm spring morning, when the air smells sweet with the scent of fresh grass and the sun's rays kiss the earth, a small farm nestled in the rolling hills woke up to the sound of new life. The farm, with its barns and sprawling fields, was a peaceful place. It had long been a home to the simple rhythms of farm life, where the rooster's crow greeted the dawn, and the cows, chickens, and horses all had their daily chores. But today, there was something new and special on the farm. A little piglet was born in the cozy warmth of the barn. He was small and delicate, his soft pink skin trembling as he took his first breaths. His name was Wilbur. Wilbur was the runt of his litter, the smallest and weakest of the piglets. His mother, a kindly sow, nuzzled him gently, but Wilbur could already feel the weight of the world upon his tiny shoulders. His brothers and sisters grew strong and lively, but he was smaller, fragile, and often struggled to keep up. The farmer, a gentle but firm man, looked down at Wilbur and sighed softly. The farmer's wife, too, shook her head, uncertain about the future of the little piglet. In the world of the farm, survival was not a guarantee, and Wilbur's future seemed uncertain. But even in his frailty, there was something in Wilbur's heart that was full of hope. He had a spark of curiosity and a longing for connection, a quiet yearning to belong. We would lie in the straw, staring at the beams of the barn above him, and wonder about the world outside, about the wide green fields, the distant hills, and the sky that stretched on forever. He didn't know it yet, but his journey was only just beginning. The days passed slowly for the small piglet as he watched the others grow strong and playful. The farm was a lively place, full of sounds and smells and endless movement. The chickens clucked as they scratched in the dirt. The horses galloped across the meadow, and the cows with their big brown eyes wandered lazily along the fence. But Wilbur felt alone. He didn't know it yet, but something extraordinary was waiting for him on the farm. A friendship that would change his life forever. One day, when Wilbur was just old enough to walk, he found himself alone in the barn. The other pigs were busy playing, but he didn't feel like joining in. Instead, he wandered outside into the warm sun, his hooves soft on the ground. The air was warm, and the sounds of the farm filled the silence. But there was something different about today. The breeze whispered through the leaves, and Wilbur, though young and small, felt a stir of curiosity deep within him. As he explored the edge of the barn, something caught his eye. A small, quiet corner of the barn where the shadows seemed darker and the air smelled of something sweet. There, nestled in the rafters, was something he had never noticed before: a spider. She was delicate and graceful, spinning a web with slow, deliberate movements. Her legs moved skillfully, pulling threads of silk and weaving them into a beautiful, intricate pattern. Wilbur stood still, watching her with fascination. He had never seen anything like it. The spider worked steadily, her movements elegant and calm, as if she knew something that no one else did. Wilbur had never been so drawn to something so peaceful and yet so mysterious. He wanted to know who this creature was and why she was so focused on her work. She seemed to understand something that he did not, and for the first time in his short life, he felt a connection to something larger than himself. The spider, who had been quietly working away, paused for a moment. She lifted her head and saw the small pig standing below, his eyes wide with curiosity. For a long moment there was silence between them. The spider regarded him with wise, calm eyes before slowly speaking. "Hello, little pig," she said, her voice gentle, like the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. Wilbur blinked in surprise. He had never heard a spider speak before. "You seem curious," she continued, her voice full of kindness. "What is it that brings you here, little one? I've never seen anyone like you before." "Wilbur," replied, his voice soft. "You're so graceful, and your web, it's beautiful." The spider chuckled softly. "I am Charlotte, and I weave webs because it is my nature. Just as you have your own special gifts, so do I. We each have our role to play in the world." Wilbur looked up at her, a sense of wonder filling his heart. "What's your role, Charlotte? And what's my role? I don't really know what mine is." Charlotte's eyes softened as she watched the little pig below her. "Your role, little one, is not to be big or strong, but to be exactly who you are. You are special in your own way, and the world will show you your place. All you have to do is be kind, and your journey will unfold." Wilbur listened, not fully understanding but feeling comforted by Charlotte's words. He didn't know yet what the future held, but for the first time he felt that he was not alone. There was someone here, someone who saw him for who he was, and in that moment Wilbur realized that perhaps his journey was just beginning. Not just as a small pig, but as a friend a creature with his own unique place in the world. Part 2. The Web of Friendship. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Wilbur and Charlotte grew stronger. Every day, Wilbur would visit Charlotte in the quiet corner of the barn, watching her spin her delicate web. He would sit and listen to the soft, rhythmic sounds of her legs moving across the silk, her quiet concentration almost hypnotic. Charlotte, in turn, would share stories of the world beyond the barn, tales of the stars, the changing seasons, and the quiet magic of nature. She spoke of the balance of life, the unseen threads that tied all things together, and the importance of patience. Wilbur, with his wide eyes and gentle heart, was a devoted listener. He hung on every word Charlotte spoke, feeling as though he had found a kindred spirit, someone who understood the depths of his longing and curiosity. Though the other animals on the farm seemed content with their routines, Wilbur felt different. He was searching for something more, something beyond the daily rhythms of life on the farm. And Charlotte, with her wisdom, seemed to understand that. Do you ever wish you could see the world beyond the farm? Wilbur asked one day, his voice soft with wonder. Charlotte paused in her work, her legs stilling on the delicate threads. She looked at him with those wise, kind eyes, and for a moment there was a depth of thought behind her gaze. I do not wish, Wilbur, Charlotte replied quietly. I simply live. I am here to weave, to guide, and to help those who need me. The world beyond the barn is vast and full of wonders. Yes, but it is the small, quiet moments that hold the greatest meaning. Wilbur considered this for a moment, his small hooves shuffling softly in the straw beneath him. I don't know what my place is yet, Charlotte. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Charlotte smiled, her face gentle and serene. Your place will reveal itself in time. Wilbur, perhaps you'll become a source of light for someone else, just as you have already brought light into my life. Wilbur felt a warmth in his chest at her words. Charlotte's wisdom and kindness had a way of soothing his restless heart. He realized that though he may not know his purpose yet, he was not alone in his journey. He had Charlotte, and in that quiet bond there was comfort. The days passed in a peaceful rhythm. Wilbur continued to grow both in size and in spirit, and he found a sense of belonging with Charlotte. But as the seasons changed and the world around them began to shift, so too did the mood on the farm. The farmer's wife, who had initially been so concerned about Wilbur's small size, had begun to notice his unique qualities. She saw how well he was adapting, how calm and gentle he was, and how he had a natural way of calming the other animals. But despite his growing strength, there was a quiet unease in Wilbur's heart. One afternoon, as he wandered the barn, watching the other animals at play, he overheard a conversation that made his heart skip a beat. I can't keep this little pig forever, the farmer said to his wife, his voice stern but filled with finality. We'll have to sell him. He's too much of a burden, and he won't make us any money. I'll take him to the market tomorrow. Wilbur froze in place, his heart thudding painfully in his chest. The words were like a bolt of lightning striking him with fear. He had heard of what happened to pigs at the market, and the thought of being taken away from the farm, from Charlotte, from everything he had come to know, filled him with dread. He couldn't bear the thought of it. With trembling legs, Wilbur ran to his favorite spot in the barn, the quiet corner where Charlotte spun her web. His breath came in shallow gasps as he approached her. Charlotte, he cried out, his voice filled with panic. They're going to sell me. They're going to take me to the market tomorrow. I don't want to go. Charlotte, who had always been a picture of calm and wisdom, paused in her work and looked at Wilbur with concern. She could see the fear in his eyes, the same fear that had once clouded his own heart when he first came to the farm. But Charlotte was not one to be easily shaken, and she knew exactly what to do. "Don't worry, Wilbur," she said in her soft, soothing voice. "I will help you. We will not let them take you. I will find a way." Wilbur looked up at her, his eyes wide with hope. How can we stop them?" Charlotte smiled, her eyes gleaming with a quiet determination. "I have a plan, Wilbur. I will weave a web that will change everything. I will write a message in my web, something that will make the farmer see how special you are. I will make sure that they know you are no ordinary pig." Wilbur's heart swelled with gratitude. Charlotte had always been there for him, offering her wisdom, her kindness, and now she was offering him her plan to save him from a fate he couldn't bear to face. "But how will it work?" Wilbur asked, his voice trembling with hope. Charlotte simply nodded and began to weave with a renewed sense of purpose. "Just wait, my friend. You'll see." Sargeti Omonem. Part 3. The Web of Hope and the Growing Mystery. The days that followed were heavy with uncertainty for Wilbur. Every moment he spent at the farm, surrounded by the sounds of the animals and the whisper of the wind through the barn, was now filled with an undercurrent of dread. The farmer's words echoed in his ears, and each time he looked at Charlotte, he felt both comforted and frightened. He trusted her completely, but he knew the stakes were higher than ever. He was running out of time. Charlotte, however, had remained calm and collected her quiet determination unwavering. Each day she spent hours spinning her intricate web, but it was no ordinary web. With each delicate thread she wove something more, something that would change Wilbur's life forever. Wilbur could only watch in awe as Charlotte worked. He had always marveled at her skill, the way she moved so gracefully and purposefully. But today, there was something different in her movements. There was a sense of urgency in the air, and the barn seemed to hold its breath as Charlotte added the final touches to her web. Her legs moved swiftly, almost as though she were trying to outpace time itself. The barn was quiet, save for the soft rustling of the straw beneath Wilbur's hooves and the gentle tapping of Charlotte's legs on the web. She had been working for hours, weaving a pattern that was both intricate and profound. Wilbur could barely contain his curiosity. "What are you writing, Charlotte?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "What's the message going to say?" Charlotte paused for a moment, her eyes meeting Wilbur's. She smiled softly, her expression filled with reassurance. "You'll see soon enough," she replied, her voice calm yet purposeful. "Trust me, Wilbur, this web will make all the difference. It will change everything." The air in the barn grew still, as though the world itself were waiting for the web to be completed. With a final delicate movement, Charlotte finished her work. She stepped back, her legs hovering in the air as she surveyed the web with quiet satisfaction. Wilbur, his heart racing with anticipation, slowly walked up to the edge of the web, and there, shimmering in the center, were the words, "Some pig." Wilbur stared in disbelief. The words glistened in the soft light filtering through the barn's windows, as though the web itself had been touched by something magical. Charlotte had done it. She had written a message that would be seen by everyone, the farmers, the neighbors, and anyone who came to the barn. "What does it mean?" Wilbur whispered, his voice filled with wonder and confusion. What will they think? Charlotte's eyes gleamed, and she gave him a reassuring look. It will be enough, Wilbur. It will make them stop and look at you. It will make them see you for who you truly are. Wilbur didn't fully understand, but he trusted Charlotte. He stood silently for a moment, watching as the words in the web seemed to shimmer and pulse with an otherworldly light. He couldn't help but feel a spark of hope rising within him, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, this would work. The next morning, as the sun began to rise, the farmer came into the barn to check on his animals. He walked past Wilbur's pen, his eyes scanning the familiar sights of the farm. But then something caught his eye. Something strange, something unexpected. The farmer stopped in his tracks, staring at the web with disbelief. His brow furrowed, and he walked closer, squinting at the shimmering words. He leaned in closer to inspect it, his mouth agape in shock. What on earth? He muttered under his breath, his hands trembling as he reached out to touch the web. At that moment, the farmer's wife, who'd been busy in the kitchen, came running out to see what was happening. She gasped as she saw the words too. "Some pig," she exclaimed, her voice filled with astonishment. "But how is that possible? It's a miracle." The farmer stood motionless for a moment, still staring at the web in disbelief. "I've never seen anything like it before," he said, his voice shaking. This pig must be special." Word quickly spread throughout the farm, and soon the neighbors were gathered around the barn, all eager to see this incredible sight. People came from far and wide, marveling at the words in Charlotte's web. The more they looked, the more convinced they became that Wilbur was no ordinary pig. Surely there must be something extraordinary about him. The more the people spoke, the more the farm began to buzz with excitement and curiosity. And for Wilbur, it was as though a wave of relief washed over him. For the first time since he'd heard the farmer's words about selling him, he felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this small act of kindness from Charlotte had set in motion something greater than he could have ever imagined. But even as the excitement spread across the farm, Charlotte's work was far from done. She knew that this was only the beginning. The first web had drawn attention, but there were still challenges ahead. She needed to keep weaving each new word in her web, would need to carry more meaning, more hope. The story of Wilbur the pig, with the magical web, was only just beginning to unfold. But in that moment, as the crowd marveled at the web, there was something undeniable in the air, a sense of possibility, a sense that something extraordinary was happening. Shides Part 4. The Miracle of the Web and the Growing Mystery. The day after the first miracle in the barn, the air on the farm seemed to hum with excitement. The farmer, his wife, and the neighbors had all seen Charlotte's web, the word "some pig" sparkling in the sunlight, like a beacon of hope. People talked about it for days, discussing the extraordinary sight, wondering how it had happened and speculating on the mystery behind it. As word spread, more and more visitors came to the farm, eager to see the miracle for themselves. Wilbur, though still nervous about the attention, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. People looked at him differently now. They saw something special in him. They saw a pig who had somehow earned a place in the world. And for the first time in his life, Wilbur began to feel important. Yet despite the newfound admiration, the shadows of fear still lingered in the back of his mind. The thought of being sold to the butcher still haunted him. Even as he basked in the attention of the visitors, he couldn't quite shake the fear that it might all end too soon. But Charlotte, wise, calm, and full of quiet strength, could sense Wilbur's unease. She could see the uncertainty in his eyes, and so, with a gentle smile, she began to spin once more. "I'm not finished yet." Wilbur, Charlotte said one evening, as she began to weave a new message into her web. Her legs moved gracefully, her tiny body swaying with the rhythm of her work. "There's more to do. You're not just some pig. You are much more than that." Wilbur watched her with wide, trusting eyes. "What do you mean, Charlotte? What are you going to write next?" Charlotte didn't answer right away. Instead, she concentrated on her work, her legs moving in a fluid dance as she added more threads to the web. The barn, which had been filled with the sounds of animals at play, grew quiet. Only the sound of Charlotte's delicate movements and the occasional rustle of straw filled the air. Her focus was complete, her determination clear. By morning, Charlotte had finished her work. And when the farmer arrived, he stopped dead in his tracks. There above Wilbur's pen was a new message. "Terrific." The farmer's eyes widened in disbelief, and he called his wife over. She too gasped. The web shimmered in the light of dawn, the words standing out against the golden threads. The news spread faster than wildfire. The neighbors returned, some of them, even bringing their families, eager to witness the second miracle. They marveled at the web, their voices filled with awe. "Terrific. What does it mean?" They asked each other, their voices filled with wonder. For Wilbur, it felt as though the web itself was telling his story. He had always felt small and insignificant, but now the world was beginning to see him as something much more terrific. He wasn't just a pig to be sold, or a farm animal to be ignored. He was a miracle, a creature of importance. But once again, Charlotte remained calm, her quiet wisdom unshaken. She knew that the web alone wasn't enough. There was more to be done. The story was only just beginning. Over the next few days, Charlotte worked tirelessly, spinning one intricate web after another. Each time she finished a new one, the words she wove were more dazzling, more profound, radiant, flawless, humble. With each new word, the legend of Wilbur grew, and the excitement on the farm only intensified. Soon people came from towns far and wide, all eager to see the miracle pig for themselves. The farmer, who had once been ready to sell Wilbur, now looked at him with newfound admiration. Wilbur was no longer just the runt of the litter. He was special, extraordinary, and the world was taking notice. But as the web grew and the attention mounted, Wilbur began to wonder, could Charlotte's efforts really save him? Could these words, these miraculous webs, truly protect him from the fate that awaited him? He trusted Charlotte with all his heart, but the doubt still lingered one evening as Wilbur and Charlotte sat quietly in the corner of the barn. Wilbur spoke up. "Charlotte, do you really think this will work? Do you think I'm really that special?" Charlotte looked at him, her eyes filled with understanding. "You are special, Wilbur, whether anyone sees it or not. And the words I weave are not just magic. They are truth. They are a reflection of the goodness within you. You have a heart that is kind, a spirit that is gentle, and a soul that is full of wonder. That's what makes you special. And sometimes it takes a little miracle to remind the world of that." Wilbur, though still filled with uncertainty, felt a warmth in his heart at Charlotte's words. He had always thought that greatness had to be something big, something obvious, but now he understood. It wasn't the size of a pig or the attention of the world that made him special. It was his kindness, his courage, and the love he had to offer. It was the little things that mattered most. That night, as the barn grew quiet and the stars twinkled above, Wilbur laid down in his pen, his heart full of hope. Charlotte's words had given him the courage to believe in himself. And in that moment, he knew that no matter what happened next, he would face it with the quiet strength Charlotte had shown him. But even as Wilbur rested, the web above him shimmered in the soft light. Charlotte had finished her latest message, and this time the words were more than just compliments. They were a promise. The message read, "Save him." Part 5. The turning point and the struggle to save Wilbur the morning after Charlotte's final message. Save him. A strange, almost magical energy hung in the air. The barn, once quiet and ordinary, now felt like a place of hope and possibility. The other animals in the barn, including the cows, chickens, and even the horses, had started to whisper among themselves. They had seen the strange miracles in the web, and they couldn't help but feel that something extraordinary was unfolding. But for Wilbur, the weight of the words in Charlotte's web, especially the last one, "Save him," hung heavily on his heart. For all the praise, for all the wonder surrounding him, he still feared the same fate he had always known. He had heard the farmer's words again and again. He was too small, too ordinary, and eventually he would be sold. Charlotte had worked so hard to help him, but Wilbur wondered if it would truly be enough. He had grown fond of the simple pleasures of farm life, the warm sun on his back, the laughter of Fern and the other children, the rustling of leaves in the breeze. But in the back of his mind, he feared that none of this would last. The farmer, still astonished by the mysterious webs that adorned the barn, had begun to reconsider his plans. The neighbors came daily to marvel at the miracle pig, and the once unimportant farm had become the talk of the town. Still, there was something in the air, something Wilbur couldn't quite grasp, that told him that Charlotte's message had only just begun to stir something deeper. As days passed, the reality of the situation began to sink in for the other animals. The once hopeful excitement over the webs started to shift to an undercurrent of worry. Despite all the admiration from the visitors, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The farmer had promised to take Wilbur to the county fair, and though no one spoke of it openly, there was a quiet fear that Wilbur's time was running out. One morning, as the sky slowly brightened and the farm began to stir with the activities of the day, Wilbur found himself sitting in his pen, contemplating the uncertainty of his future. The farmer was busy getting ready for the fair, preparing for the journey, but all Wilbur could think about was Charlotte. She had given him so much, her webs, her words, and her unwavering friendship, but would it be enough? As he sat in the stillness of the barn, lost in his thoughts, he heard the familiar sound of delicate footsteps across the straw. Charlotte, with her graceful presence, appeared in the shadows of the rafters. Her web, shimmering softly in the early light, Wilbur's heart swelled with both love and gratitude as he looked up at her. "I'm so scared," Charlotte Wilbur admitted softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what's going to happen to me. Even after all your hard work, I feel like I'm still just a pig. A pig who's going to be sold no matter what. Charlotte lowered her head, her many eyes reflecting a wisdom far beyond Wilbur's understanding. "Wilbur," she said, her voice gentle and comforting, "you are so much more than you think. You have shown kindness, bravery, and heart, and that is what makes you special. The world may not always see that at first, but I see it, and you have earned a place in it." But Charlotte Wilbur replied, his voice trembling with uncertainty, "How can I prove I'm worthy of staying here? The farmer says I'll be sold. What can I do to stop that?" Charlotte paused for a moment, and then slowly, almost as if the answer had been waiting for her all along, she replied, "You've already done it, Wilbur. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You've already shown the world who you are through your actions, your gentleness, and your heart. You are worthy just as you are." Wilbur felt a weight lift from his chest, but it was still heavy with doubt. But what if it's not enough? What if the farmer still wants to sell me? I don't want to leave the farm. I don't want to leave you. Charlotte's eyes softened, her expression both sad and hopeful. "Don't worry about tomorrow, Wilbur. All we have is today. Let us see what happens. Your journey is far from over." Wilbur, still uncertain, but comforted by Charlotte's wisdom, sat quietly beside her, looking up at the shimmering web. The stillness around them seemed to embrace him, offering peace that he hadn't felt in a long time. Perhaps Charlotte was right. Perhaps the world didn't need him to be extraordinary. Perhaps being kind, being true was enough. As the day progressed, the air on the farm grew thicker with anticipation. Wilbur knew that his time was running out. Soon, he would have to leave the barn, and perhaps the only home he had ever known. He looked up at the rafters again, where Charlotte worked tirelessly, weaving her next message into the web. One delicate thread at a time, Charlotte's work was far from over. Even as the weight of the farm's impending changes loomed, she continued to spin her web one line at a time. Each word she wove was more than just a message. It was a promise, a hope, and a reminder that love and kindness could change the world. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, Charlotte's latest web was complete. Wilbur approached his heart racing with both hope and fear, eager to see what message would appear. And as he gazed up at the glowing web, the message that Charlotte had left for the world became clear. The miracle pig. Part 6. The Fair and the Unfolding Miracle. The day of the fair arrived with the first light of dawn, a soft glow spreading across the land. The air was crisp, the sky clear and blue, and the entire farm seemed to hold its breath as the animals gathered near the barn. The farmer was busy loading Wilbur into the back of the truck, his face set in determination. The time had come. The truck rumbled as it began its journey toward the county fair, where Wilbur's fate would soon be decided. But Wilbur's heart was heavy. He had never been this far from the farm before, and though the trip was filled with the bustling excitement of the fair, there was something inside him that felt uncertain. He had heard the whispers of the farmer and the others. People were curious about the pig with the miraculous web, but curiosity didn't protect you from the cold reality of the world. No matter how many people looked at him with awe, no matter how many praises Charlotte's webs had earned him, Wilbur couldn't escape the fact that he was still just a pig. And yet, there was something inside him, a flicker of hope, an unspoken belief that Charlotte had done something more than just weave words. She had given him something deeper. She had shown him a kindness that could not be measured in webs or words. She had made him feel important, loved, and for that, he would carry a sense of peace with him, even in the uncertain future. As the truck made its way to the fairgrounds, Wilbur gazed out of the small window, watching the world change around him. The roads turned from familiar dirt paths to the bustling streets of the town. He saw people walking, their eyes wide with excitement as they made their way toward the fair. The smell of popcorn, cotton candy, and fried foods filled the air, and the sounds of laughter and music carried over the crowds. Finally, they arrived at the fairgrounds, and the truck came to a stop. The fair was alive with color and energy. Bright tents and flags fluttered in the breeze, and the air was filled with the sound of children's laughter and the clinking of coins. Wilbur's heart raced, but a sense of calm washed over him as he was unloaded from the truck. The farmer's hand gently guided him into a pen where other animals were already gathering, each one curious and eager to see the spectacle that awaited them. As Wilbur settled into his new pen, he saw the crowd gathering around him. People stared, some whispering excitedly, others just observing. But there was no time for questions or doubts. The fair had begun, and with it, Charlotte's message was about to take center stage. For the first time, Wilbur felt an unfamiliar sensation, a sense of being seen, of being noticed, not as just another farm animal, but as something more. The web above his pen glimmered in the morning light, casting a soft golden glow over him. It was as if the words were alive, guiding him, encouraging him. The fair's visitors began to gather around, eager to see the miracle pig and the web that had made him famous. Soon, people began to point to the web. "Look," someone exclaimed. "It says, 'The Miracle Pig.'" Another voice joined in, radiant, flawless. "He really is a miracle." And as the crowd grew larger, the sense of excitement intensified. Wilbur felt his heart swell, but there was a fluttering in his chest too, a combination of awe and nervousness. The farmer stood nearby watching the scene unfold. His eyes were wide with wonder, his fingers rubbing his chin thoughtfully. The pig he had once planned to sell was now the star of the fair. People came from all directions to see Wilbur, and with each new visitor, his fame seemed to grow. His heart filled with gratitude for the strange, magical way his life had changed. Then just as Wilbur began to relax, a sudden voice called out from the crowd. It was loud, commanding, and unmistakable. "That pig is not a miracle. He's just a regular farm animal. What's so special about him?" The voice came from a man standing near the front of the crowd, his arms crossed. He looked over at Wilbur with a critical expression. He was a skeptic, someone who believed only in the tangible, the measurable. He could see no magic in the pig's simple form, no significance in the words on the web. The crowd fell silent, and Wilbur's heart skipped a beat. Doubt crept back into his mind. Was he truly special, or was he just another animal destined to be sold and forgotten? But before he could fall further into his thoughts, the familiar voice of Charlotte rose above the murmurs of the crowd. "There is more to Wilbur than meets the eye," Charlotte said softly, her voice carrying over the fairground like a gentle breeze. "What you see is not all that he is. He is a miracle, not because of how he looks, but because of the goodness in his heart." The crowd, initially skeptical, grew silent again. For a moment, there was only Charlotte's voice, calm and sure, weaving a new kind of magic. The word "save him" lingered in the air like a promise, and it seemed that Charlotte's magic had touched everyone, even the skeptic who had questioned Wilbur's place in the world. Charlotte continued, "Wilbur is not just a pig. He is a friend, a companion, and a creature with a heart full of love and kindness. And that is what makes him extraordinary. It is what makes him a miracle." As she spoke, the crowd seemed to soften their hearts, opening to the truth of her words. They had come expecting a simple show, but they were leaving with something more. An understanding of the quiet, subtle power of kindness, the magic of genuine friendship. And as the day stretched on, more and more visitors came to see Wilbur, drawn by the story of the miracle pig and his wise, kind friend Charlotte. The fair would go on, but something had changed, something intangible but undeniable. The crowd saw Wilbur for who he was not, just a farm animal, but a creature of wonder, a symbol of the beauty of life's simplest gifts. Part 7. The Final Web and the Heartfelt Goodbye. The days at the fair passed in a whirlwind of excitement, and Wilbur found himself surrounded by a sea of faces all eager to see the miraculous pig. The farmer, now proud of his remarkable pig, showed him off to anyone who would listen. The fairgrounds buzzed with talk of Wilbur and his incredible transformation, from an ordinary farm pig to the star attraction of the entire event. Charlotte, however, remained calm as always. She had done what she set out to do. Wilbur was safe for now. The web had worked its magic. The people believed in the miracle of Wilbur, and the farmer had promised to keep him. But Charlotte knew that time was running out. Her strength was waning, and though she had saved Wilbur, there was still something important left for her. To do something that would be her final act of love and friendship. As the days passed, Charlotte grew weaker. Her delicate legs, once so swift and graceful, now moved more slowly. Her web, once intricate and filled with hope, became more sparse, the threads hanging loosely from the rafters. Wilbur noticed the change. Though he didn't fully understand what it meant, he could see that Charlotte was no longer the vibrant, energetic spider she had once been. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the fairgrounds, casting long shadows over the animals' pens, Wilbur went to Charlotte, his heart heavy with an unspoken fear. The crowds had finally begun to thin, the excitement of the fair slowly fading away, and now there was nothing but silence and the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. "Charlotte," Wilbur called softly, his voice trembling. "Charlotte, are you okay?" Charlotte's eyes, though dimmed with exhaustion, met his with a gentle, understanding look. She had always been wise beyond measure, and now, as her time grew shorter, she seemed to hold even more quiet knowledge in her gaze. She smiled, a soft, peaceful smile that Wilbur had come to love so much. "I'm fine, Wilbur," she said, her voice a soft whisper. "I've done what I needed to do. You are safe now, and the world has seen the miracle you are. You have changed everything, and that's enough." Wilbur stood by her side, his small body trembling with emotion. "But you're not feeling well, Charlotte. What's happening? What's going to happen to you?" Charlotte paused for a moment, taking a deep, slow breath. She knew Wilbur's heart was full of questions, and she wished she could ease his fears. But she also knew that part of life was about accepting the unknown, embracing the cycles of nature that shaped everything: birth and death, joy and sorrow, beginnings and endings. "Wilbur," she said softly, "we are all part of a larger web, one that weaves together all living things. I have had my time, my purpose, and now it is simply time for me to rest. But don't worry, my work isn't over yet. You will carry my message, my friendship with you, always. Wilbur's heart swelled with sorrow. But I don't want to lose you, Charlotte. You're my best friend. I don't want to be alone again. Charlotte's smile never faded. You won't be alone, Wilbur. Not really. You'll carry me in your heart just as I will carry you in mine. And remember, kindness and love are the greatest gifts we can give to the world. Keep those gifts with you always, and you'll never truly be alone. With that, Charlotte began to weave one final web. She moved slowly now, each movement deliberate, each thread carefully placed. The other animals in the barn gathered around, watching in quiet reverence as Charlotte worked. They knew that this would be her last web, the last message she would leave behind, the final act of friendship and love for Wilbur. The web she wove was unlike any other. It was simple, yet profound. At the center of the web, she wrote one last message, humble. As Charlotte finished her work, she paused for a moment, looking at Wilbur. "This is my gift to you," she said softly. "Remember, being humble is not about thinking less of yourself, but about thinking of yourself less. It is the quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are and being true to it." Wilbur, his heart heavy with grief and love, nodded slowly. "I will remember, Charlotte. I promise I will never forget." And with that, Charlotte settled into the corner of the barn, her body still and peaceful. Wilbur sat beside her, keeping vigil, his heart full of gratitude for the spider who had saved his life and changed the way he saw the world. He didn't know how long he sat there, but the stars above twinkled in the sky, a soft reminder of the beauty that still existed, even in moments of loss. Part 8. The Legacy of Charlotte's Web. The next morning dawned soft and quiet as the first rays of sunlight gently bathed the fairgrounds in a warm golden glow. Wilbur stood by Charlotte's side, his heart heavy with the loss of his dear friend. The fair, now quiet and still, felt different without the bustling crowds. The air was thick with a bittersweet calm, and the world around him seemed to pause in quiet remembrance. Charlotte's final web, which shimmered delicately in the light of dawn, remained untouched. The words humble glistened softly, reminding Wilbur of the deep wisdom that Charlotte had left behind. Her presence, though no longer physical, filled the barn with a quiet grace, and Wilbur could still feel her spirit with him, guiding him through the difficult moments. The farmer, noticing the changes in the barn, came to Wilbur's pen. He gazed at the web above him, still in awe of the miraculous pig and the wise, gentle spider that had woven such powerful words. The farmer's thoughts seemed to linger in the air for a moment, as if considering the impact Charlotte's efforts had made on his life. He had been preparing to take Wilbur to the market, but now, with the crowds gone and the fair winding down, the farmer found himself reconsidering. He could not deny the magic that had unfolded before him. Wilbur, the pig who had once seemed destined for nothing more than the butcher's knife, had become a symbol of something greater, a symbol of kindness, hope, and the quiet strength that comes from true friendship. The farmer stood still for a moment, deep in thought. Then with a soft sigh, he turned away, his footsteps quiet against the barn's wooden floor. "I think Wilbur will stay here with us," he murmured to himself, more out of a sense of quiet certainty than a decision made in haste. Wilbur, who had been listening, felt a wave of relief wash over him. Though he had no idea what the future held, Charlotte's message had worked its magic. He was safe. And somehow he knew that Charlotte's legacy would live on through him. She had saved him in ways he could never have imagined, and now it was his turn to honor her sacrifice. But there was more to Charlotte's legacy than just her webs. It was the kindness she had shown him, the lessons she had taught him about patience, humility, and the quiet strength of love. Charlotte had woven more than just silk threads. She had woven a web of hope, and that web would forever remain in Wilbur's heart. As the days passed, the barn slowly returned to a more peaceful routine. The sounds of the fairgrounds faded, and the animals resumed their daily lives. But Wilbur's heart had been forever changed. The love and friendship he had experienced with Charlotte had left an indelible mark on his soul. No longer was he just a pig in a pen. He was a part of something greater, something deeper than he had ever imagined. The other animals too seemed to understand the depth of Charlotte's impact. The cows, chickens, and even the sheep, who had never been as close to Charlotte as Wilbur, began to speak of her in quiet reverence. They would pause in the barn, their heads lowered in remembrance, and they too felt the quiet power of her wisdom. One evening, as the sun began to set, Wilbur found himself standing by Charlotte's final web. The words humble still shone softly in the fading light, a reminder of everything she had taught him. He stood there for a long while, his eyes filled with both sadness and gratitude. Though Charlotte was no longer with him, her spirit lived on in the barn, in the animals, and in every heart that had been touched by her kindness. And as the seasons changed, so too did Wilbur. He grew stronger, more confident, and began to take on a new role at the farm. He became a leader of sorts, guiding the younger animals with the wisdom Charlotte had passed on to him. He would often share stories of his dear friend the spider, who had woven magic into his life, and he would remind everyone that the greatest gifts in life were the simple acts of kindness and love. But Wilbur's journey didn't end with his newfound wisdom. He went on to become a father himself, raising piglets who would grow up to carry on his legacy. He taught them, as Charlotte had taught him, that kindness and humility were not just virtues to admire, but to live by every day. And as the years passed, the farm thrived, not just because of its animals, but because of the quiet lessons that had been passed down from one heart to another. And whenever Wilbur sat by the edge of his pen, watching the sunset and listening to the soft sounds of the farm, he would always feel Charlotte's presence beside him, her wisdom echoing in the quiet of the barn. He had carried her legacy with him, and in that, he had found peace. For the web that Charlotte had woven was not just a simple thing made of silk. It was a symbol of the enduring power of friendship, sacrifice, and the quiet magic that exists in the world around us. It was a reminder that even the smallest, most fragile threads can create something beautiful and lasting. As the stars began to twinkle above the farm, Wilbur took a deep breath, his heart full of gratitude. He knew that Charlotte's spirit would always be with him, that her legacy would live on in every act of kindness, in every story shared, and in every quiet, humble moment of love. And so, as the night embraced the farm and the world fell into a peaceful sleep, Wilbur rested easy, knowing that the greatest miracle of all had already happened. He had found a friend who had shown him the true meaning of life. That brings us to the end of our story. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again for future stories.